The stronger the feeling of hunger, the clearer the head works, and the more distinct the odors of food become. So thought Tarkad, son of Azur. He had not had a crumb in his mouth for 2 days now, except for 2 figs he had picked in another man's garden. He had not had time to pick more, for the wicked mistress had run out of the house and chased him down the street. Her shrill screams still echoed in his ears as he walked through the market square. They were what kept his trembling fingers from snatching the tempting, juicy fruit from the baskets of the vendors. Never before had he pondered how much food was brought to Babylon's market square, and how delicious it smelled. Crossing the square, he approached the courtyard and began to stroll in front of the entrance. He hoped to encounter someone he knew, someone from whom he could borrow at least a copper coin. Only it could bring a smile to the grim gatekeeper's face and secure a generous meal in the tavern. Without money, he was an unwelcome guest here, and he knew it well. Deep in thought, he unexpectedly came face to face with the person he least wanted to meet at that moment, the lanky and burly Dabasir, the camel trader. He had long owed Dabasir a debt. "Ah, Tarkad," exclaimed Dabasir joyfully. "I was just thinking about when you would return the 2 coppers I lent you a month ago, and the silver coin from before that. Good thing we ran into each other. I need the money now. What do you say?" Tarkad flushed deeply. He had no strength to argue on an empty stomach with the verbose Dabasir. "Sorry, please," he stammered, "but I don't have any coppers or silver today to settle with you." "Well, find some then," persisted Dabasir. "It can't be that hard for you to come up with a couple of coppers and 1 silver coin to repay an old friend of your father who helped you in a tough time. I can't. It's like some evil fate is chasing me." "Evil fate? Don't blame the gods for your own mistakes. Evil fate only chases those who think more about borrowing money than returning it. Come with me then. Sit with me while I eat. I'm hungry and want to tell you a story." Tarkad shuddered at Dabasir's blunt directness, but at least it was an invitation to step into the tavern. Dabasir nudged him to the far corner where they settled on small mats. When the establishment's owner, Kauska, approached them with a smile, Dabasir addressed him in his usual manner. "Well, fat desert lizard, bring me a lamb's leg, well roasted and juicy, and plenty of bread and vegetables because I'm very hungry. Oh, and don't forget my friend here. Bring him a pitcher of water, nice and cool. It's a scorching day today." Tarkad's heart pounded. Was he really going to sit there and watch Dabasir devour a lamb's leg while he drank water? But he said nothing. Nothing came to mind. Dabasir, on the other hand, seemed unaware of the silence. Smiling, he waved a greeting to other patrons, all of whom he seemed to know, and continued. "From travelers returning from Urfa, I heard about a wealthy man who ordered a thin slab of stone cut so finely that you can see through it. He placed it in his window to shield his home from rain. It's yellow in color, and travelers who look through it swear that the whole world appears in a very unusual hue. What do you say to that, Tarkad? Could it be that the entire world is a different color?" "Anything is possible," replied the youth, more interested in the fat lamb's leg placed before Dabasir. "I'm even certain of it because I've seen the world in a different color myself. The story I'm about to tell you is exactly about how I managed to see the ordinary color of the world again." "Dabasir's going to tell a story," whispered the neighbors, shifting their mats closer. Other patrons stopped chewing and also gathered in a half circle. Everyone held half-gnawed bones in their hands. Only Tarkad sat without food. Dabasir didn't share any lamb with him and didn't even offer a piece of bread that had fallen off the plate onto the floor. "The story I want to tell," began Dabasir, chewing on a piece of meat, "is from my youthful years. It's about how I became a camel trader. Does anyone here know that I was a slave in Syria?" A murmur of surprised exclamations swept through the room, visibly pleasing Dabasir. "When I was still very young," continued Dabasir, taking another big bite of the lamb's leg, "I apprenticed with my father to make saddles. I worked alongside him in the workshop and managed to support myself and my wife. Being young and inexperienced, I didn't earn much, but enough to lead a modest life. I wanted many things but couldn't afford them. However, I soon discovered that merchants were willing to lend me money when I didn't have enough to pay back. In my youth and inexperience, I didn't yet know that a person who spends more than they earn sows the wind, from which later grows a storm of various misfortunes and calamities. I began to indulge my whims, dressed in expensive clothes, and bought jewelry for my wife without considering my means. I settled my debts as best I could, but soon I found my earnings weren't enough to live on and repay my debts. Creditors began to pursue me, demanding payment for expensive purchases. Life became unbearable. I started borrowing money from friends, but I couldn't repay them. Things went from bad to worse. My wife returned to her father's house, and I decided to leave Babylon and find another city where a young man might have more opportunities to live. For 2 years, I led the hard life of a caravan guide. There I got involved with a gang of bandits who roamed the desert looking for unarmed caravans. Such actions were unworthy of my father's son, but I saw the world through colored stones and didn't understand how far I had already fallen. Our first raid on a caravan was successful. We captured a rich booty of gold, silk, and other valuable goods. We took the loot to Janir and spent it all there. The second attempt was not so successful. We had barely attacked the caravan when we were attacked by a local tribe, whose leader the merchants paid for protection. One of our 2 leaders was killed, and the rest of us were taken to Damascus, where they stripped us of all our clothes and sold us into slavery. I was bought for 2 silver coins by the chief of a Syrian desert tribe. I was closely shaven, wearing only a loincloth, and outwardly indistinguishable from other slaves. Being a carefree youth, I thought it was just a funny adventure, but one day my owner brought me out before his 4 wives and said they could take me as a eunuch. It was only then that I understood the hopelessness of my situation. This desert tribe was wild and highly militaristic. I was completely at their mercy, with no weapon and no chance to escape. I stood there, utterly frightened, and these 4 women seemed not to notice me at all. I didn't know if I could expect any sympathy from them. The first wife, Sarah, was the eldest. When she looked at me, her face showed nothing. It seemed futile to expect any compassion from her. The next wife was a haughty beauty. She regarded me with such indifference, as if I were a worm in the mud. The 2 youngest giggled incessantly. It felt like an eternity passed as I stood there, awaiting my fate. It appeared that each of the women was inclined to defer the decision to the other. Finally, Sarah spoke in a cold tone.
We have enough eunuchs, and there are few camel drivers, and those we have are of no use. I happen to need to visit my sick mother today, and I have no slave I can trust with a camel. Ask this slave if he knows how to handle camels.
What do you know about camels? The master asked me. I can make them kneel, load them up, lead them over long distances without tiring them. If needed, I can treat their illnesses. This slave is quick-witted, remarked the master. If you want Sarah, take him as your camel driver. So I came under Sarah's authority, and that very day I led her camel on a long journey to visit her sick mother. Taking the opportunity, I thanked her for intervening in my fate, and told her that by birth I was not a slave, but the son of a free man, a respected master from Babylon. I also shared my story with her, but her response left me perplexed.
How can you call yourself the son of a free man when your weaknesses have brought you to this state? If a person has the soul of a slave within them, they will become one, regardless of their birth, just as water always seeks the lowest place. If you had the soul of a free man, you would have earned respect and honor in your city, despite the twists of fate.
For over a year, I was a slave and lived among slaves, yet I never became one of them. One day, Sarah asked me,
Why do you sit alone in your tent while all the other slaves seek each other's company in their free time?
I'm pondering over what you said to me, I replied. There is no slave soul within me. I can't be with them, so I sit alone.
I also find myself alone. My dowry was very large, which is why my master married me. But he did not love me. Yet every woman wants to be loved. Because of this, I remained barren. I have neither son nor daughter, and so I am always forced to sit alone. If I were a man, I would prefer death to slavery, but the customs of our tribe make women slaves.
What do you think of me this time? I asked. What soul lives within me, that of a free man or a slave?
Do you want to settle your debts in Babylon?
Yes, I desire that, but I see no way, I admitted.
If so many years have passed and you haven't even tried, then a slave's soul still lives within you. A man should respect himself. Can one respect a man who does not repay his debts?
But what can I do? I am in Syria, and I am a slave.
Then remain a slave in Syria, weakling.
I am not a weakling, I retorted passionately.
Then prove it.
How?
Doesn't your king fight enemies by any means and at every opportunity? Your enemies are your debts. They drove you out of Babylon. They are too strong for you. If you were to fight them like a man, you could overcome them and become a respected person among your own people.
I pondered a lot afterward over those unjust accusations and mentally rehearsed many phrases in my defense, proving that in my heart I was not a slave. But I never had the opportunity to express them to Sarah's face. 3 days later, her servant summoned me to her.
My mother has fallen ill again. Saddle the 2 best camels from my husband's herd. Pack water skins and saddlebags with provisions for a long journey. The servant will provide you with the supplies.
I loaded the camels, marveling at how much provision the servant had prepared, considering my mistress' mother lived just a day's journey away. The servant rode on the rear camel, while I led my mistress's camel by the reins. By the time we reached her mother's home, it was already dark. Sarah dismissed the servant and asked me,
Dabasir, does a free man's soul live within you or that of a slave?
A free man's.
You have a chance to prove it. My husband has drunk much wine, and his servants are lazy. Take these camels and run. Here's my husband's clothing in the bag so you can change your appearance. I will say you stole the camels and fled while I visited my sick mother.
In you, there is the soul of a queen. I want you to be happy.
What happiness can await a runaway wife in a distant land among strangers? Go your way, and may the desert gods protect you, for the journey is long, and there is neither food nor water in the desert.
It didn't take much convincing. I thanked her sincerely and disappeared into the night. This land was unfamiliar to me, and I had only a vague idea of where Babylon lay, but I boldly set off across the desert dunes. I rode one camel and led the other by its tether. I traveled through the night and all the next day, driven forward only by the thought of the fate awaiting a slave who stole his master's property and attempted to escape. By evening, I had reached some uninhabited mountainous terrain. Sharp rocks cut the camel's feet, and soon they were barely moving forward. I encountered neither humans nor animals, which was hardly surprising in such an inhospitable place. Few people could have survived such a journey. Day by day, we struggled onward. Food and water ran out. The sun blazed mercilessly. By the end of the 9th day, I slid off the camel and realized I didn't have the strength to climb back on. I knew I would die in this desolate desert. I stretched out on the ground and fell asleep. The first rays of the rising sun woke me up. I sat up and looked around. There was a coolness in the morning air. The camels lay motionless nearby. Around us stretched the sands dotted with rocks, with thorny plants here and there. There were no signs of water, no food for either man or beast. Is this desolate place where I will meet my end? My mind was clearer than ever, and my body meant nothing to me anymore. Cracked and bleeding lips, dry and swollen tongue, empty stomach, none of it mattered anymore. I looked into the distance and again asked myself, what soul lives within me, a slave's or a free man's? And suddenly became clear to me, if a slave lives within me, then I should surrender, lie down in this desert, and die. A fitting end for an escaped slave. But if a free man lives within me, I must find a way to Babylon, repay those who trusted me, see my wife who loved me, and comfort my parents. Your enemies are your debts. They drove you out of Babylon, Sarah had said. And it was true. Why hadn't I defended myself like a man? Why had I let my wife return to her father? And then something strange happened. The whole world suddenly seemed different, as if I had been looking at it through a colored stone all this time, and now it was removed from my eyes. I suddenly saw the true values of life. To die in the desert? Not if I could help it. I understood what I needed to do. First, return to Babylon and meet every person to whom I owed debts. I must tell them that after years of wandering and misfortune, I had returned to settle my debts. Then I must build a home for my wife and become a respected citizen of the city, one whom my parents could be proud of. My debts were my enemies, but the people to whom I owed were my friends because they believed in me. I slowly rose to my feet. I paid no attention to hunger or thirst. They couldn't stop me from reaching Babylon. Within me lived the soul of a free man returning to confront his enemies and reclaim his friends. The dim eyes of my camels brightened with new vigor when they heard new tones in my hoarse voice. With great effort, after several attempts, they stood up and headed north, where my inner voice told me Babylon should be. We found water. We entered a more fertile land where grass and fruit trees grew. We found the road to Babylon because the soul of a free man sees life as a series of challenges to be faced and overcome, while the soul of a slave only groans. What can I do if I am a slave? And what about you, Tarkad? Does an empty stomach make you think more clearly? Don't you also want to find the path to self-respect? Can you see the world in its true light? Do you have the desire to honestly settle your debts and become a respected person again in Babylon? Tears welled up in the youth's eyes. You have shown me a new life. Now I feel that the soul of a free man lives within me. Well, what did you do, Dabasir, when you returned? Someone from the audience asked. Where there is a goal, there is a way, he replied. First, I visited everyone I owed and asked them to be patient so I could earn money and pay them back. Most of them received me kindly. Some scolded me, but most wanted to help me. One of them provided the assistance I needed the most. It was the moneylender Maton. Learning that I had been a camel driver in Syria, he sent me to the old camel trader Nebatur, whom the great king had ordered to acquire a large herd of strong and healthy camels for a military campaign at that time. My knowledge of camels came in handy. Soon I managed to repay all my debts to the last penny. Only then could I proudly lift my head high and feel that I had become a respected person among people again. Dabasir resumed eating. Koshkor, you old snake, he called out loudly. The mutton has cooled. Bring me some fresh meat from the grill, and a large portion for Tarkad, the son of my old friend. He's hungry too and wants to dine with me. Thus ended the story of Dabasir, the camel trader from ancient Babylon. He found his new soul when he understood a great truth that wise people knew and used long before him. Through all ages, it has led people out of hardship and to success. And so it will always be, as long as there are people who understand its magical power. Where there is a goal, there is a way.